Good morning and welcome to the New York City Council hearing of the Committee on General Welfare, Parks and Recreation, jointly with Health. At this time, can everybody please silence your cell phones? If you wish to testify, please go to the back of the room to fill out a testimony slip. At this time and going forward, no one is to approach the dais. I repeat, no one is to approach the dais. Chairs, we are ready to begin.
Thank you and good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's joint hearing. My name is Diana Ayala, and I am the Deputy Speaker of the New York City Council and the Chair of the General Welfare Committee. I want to thank my fellow chairs, Council Members Shekhar Krishnan, who's on his way, and Council Member Lynn Schulman for joining me in holding this hearing today. We are here to discuss Hart Island, New York City's public cemetery. The island has served as the final resting place for many low-income New Yorkers and those who were unclaimed by family members. We have heard anecdotally about issues surrounding the capacity for the island to continue to serve as a burial site in both the short-term and the long-term future. A 2022 study estimated that Hart Island could run out of space as early as 2030. Additionally, reports from the news outlet, the city indicate that HRA significantly increased the number of caskets in each trench from 150 to 200. While it is unclear why HRA made this change, what we do know is that Hart Island is running out of space to best serve New Yorkers. Today, we want to address this issue, among others. In 2019, the City Council passed Local Law 214, which I sponsored. This bill required the Department of Social Services to establish an Office of Burial Services to provide support and assistance to individuals who have lost a loved one and need information about and help assessing public burial and a burial allowance or any similar program. We are interested in learning more about the operations of the Office of Burial Services, what the process is for bringing a loved one to a gravesite at Hart Island, how those who are laid to rest at Hart Island can be identified by location and other related matters. Today, we're also hearing two bills, Intro 1408, which I've sponsored, which would require the Department of Social Services and the Department of Parks and Recreation to undertake a comprehensive study of current burial practices, including trench locations, dimensions, and depth. The report would also estimate remaining capacity and recommend potential changes. Resolution 775, sponsored by Councilmember Farrah Lewis, which would increase the funeral cost limit of burial services for low-income residents of New York from $3,400 to $6,000. At this time, I'd like to acknowledge my colleagues who are here. We are joined by Council Members Menon, Holden, Aviles, Stevens, Lewis, Carr, I think, and Botcher. Say, yes, hi. I also would like to thank the committee staff who worked to prepare this hearing. Aminta Kilawan, Senior Legislative Counsel, Panina Rosenberg, Senior Policy Analyst, Justin Campos, Policy Analyst, Elizabeth Childers Garcia, Finance Analyst, Faria Rahman, Finance Analyst, and Julia Haramis, Unit Head, and finally, my Chief of Staff, Elsie Encarnacion. I will now call on my colleagues, Councilmember Schulman, to deliver her opening remarks, followed by Councilmember Krishnan, and then Councilmember Lewis, who will speak on her resolution.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Good morning. I'm Councilmember Lynn Schulman, Chair of the New York City Council's Committee on Health. I want to thank my colleagues, the administration, advocates, and everyone testifying today for joining us for this important hearing on Hart Island. Hart Island is unlike any other place in New York City. For more than 150 years, it has served as the city's public burial ground, the final resting place for over 1 million people who are unclaimed, unidentified, or whose families simply could not afford a private burial. For too long, it was a place hidden from public view, managed without transparency, and too often without compassion. That history is part of our city's story, and it is our responsibility to confront it with honesty and humanity. Hart Island is not just about the past. It is a mirror reflecting how we, as a city, treat our most vulnerable. During the AIDS crisis of the 1980s and 1990s, when fear and stigma overshadowed compassion, hundreds of New Yorkers who died from HIV/AIDS were buried on Hart Island. Many were young, isolated, and rejected by the families or institutions that should have cared for them. Their memory reminds us of the cost of stigma and of the importance of leading with public health and empathy. More recently, during the COVID-19 pandemic, Hart Island again became a symbol, this time of the immense human toll the virus took on our city. As morgues overflowed and families were separated by grief and distance, temporary burials on Hart Island became a necessity. The images from that time are etched into our collective memory. They compel us to ensure that those who rest there, whether because of AIDS, COVID-19, or poverty, are never forgotten, and that their resting place is maintained with dignity and care. In recent years, the city has taken important steps to reform how Hart Island is managed. The transfer of jurisdiction from the Department of Correction to the Department of Parks and Recreation was a turning point, but other agencies also play crucial roles. The Department of Health and Mental Hygiene ensures integrity and transparency in the city's processes surrounding death and burial. DOHMH maintains the official record of every death in New York City, issuing death certificates and authorizing burial and disinterment permits, including for those laid to rest on Hart Island. Through this work, the department helps families obtain the vital documentation they need for closure, remembrance, and legal recognition. The Office of Chief Medical Examiner carries a vital and compassionate responsibility, ensuring that every New Yorker, even those who die alone or remain unidentified, are treated with dignity and care. Beyond investigating unexpected or unexplained deaths, OCME serves as the city's guardian of remembrance, working tirelessly to identify the unknown and reunite families with their loved ones. When no one comes forward, OCME coordinates the respectful transfer of unclaimed remains for burial on Hart Island, maintaining detailed records so that future identification and family reconnection remain possible. Though often unseen, this work reflects our city's deepest values, that every person deserves recognition and every life is worthy of respect. Coordination among all of these agencies is essential to ensure that families can locate loved ones, visit the island, and receive clear, compassionate information. This hearing is about oversight, but it's also about values. Every person laid to rest on Hart Island has a story. They were New Yorkers, part of the fabric of this city. How we honor them and how we preserve Hart Island's history says a great deal about who we are today. Instead of burying our past, we should honor it. I look forward to constructive and compassionate conversation and to working together to ensure that Hart Island's future reflects the respect and humanity that every New Yorker deserves in life and in death. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. So nice to see you all here. I am right on time. But thank you to the chairs for joining us together today for this very important hearing. I'm Shekhar Krishnan, Chair of the Council's Committee on Parks and Recreation, and I'd like to thank my fellow co-chairs, Deputy Speaker Ayala and Councilmember Schulman, for agreeing to hold this joint hearing on the status of Hart Island, the various plans to improve it, and ultimately to ensure that it is more accessible to visitation and respectfully maintained as the city's public cemetery. Hart Island has had various uses over the years, including as the host of several jails, a sanitarium, a Cold War missile base, and a rehab center for people with substance issues. Its current use as the city's public cemetery, with over 1 million people having been buried there, has been subject to much debate, discussion, and even criticism over the years. The most problematic issue has been that for decades, the island was under the control of the Department of Corrections, which had no expertise with cemetery maintenance and the burial of human remains. Its involvement justifiably involved security concerns that required family members visiting the graves of their loved ones to be accompanied by DOC staff and be forced to endure numerous security checks and face significant difficulties in just attempting simply to schedule a visit to the island to visit their loved ones. This negatively affected the visitation experience and gave rise to a reform movement to end the treatment of Hart Island effectively as a penal colony and develop the infrastructure needed to treat those buried there and their loved ones with dignity and respect. That has been and will always be the ultimate objective of all the work around Hart Island. After numerous hearings and consultations with various stakeholders, the Council passed numerous bills to help jumpstart this reformation process. One bill in particular, Local Law 210 of 2019, transferred jurisdiction from Hart Island from the Department of Corrections to the Parks Department. The transfer occurred in 2021, and now an agency that has more expertise at managing land and public access is in control of the island. It is my hope, and the hope of so many who have advocated to improve Hart Island and make it more accessible for those visiting their relatives buried there. It is my hope that Parks jurisdiction will result in making it easier and more welcoming for the next of kin and the public to visit Hart Island. As I mentioned, the objective has been and must always be to respect the island as a somber place where so many visit to see their loved ones who are buried there, and we have to keep it that way. This past July, the Parks Department released their Hart Island Concept Plan that in more detail spells out what their vision is for the long-term future of the island. The plan is focused on upgrading and re-envisioning the island to create an improved and more accessible place for visitors, maximizing the life cycle as a public cemetery and enhancing the island's ecological and resiliency features. The projects described are estimated to cost about $130 million. Some of these include developing a 1,300 square foot welcome center with restrooms and seating, implementing adaptive reuse of the island's historic chapel as a space for contemplation, developing a remembrance walk, which would feature lawns, shaded seating, and quiet reflection areas near the ferry dock. The plan also calls for developing a new maintenance and operations area that would include an office building and a storage facility. Additionally, the plan also addresses much-needed improvements to the island's ecological systems. These projects include shoreline stabilization construction to upgrade existing seawalls, adding aquatic plantings along the shoreline to establish new wetlands, and adapting the island's central field area to account for sea level rise and allow for more land suitable for additional burials. I hope the plan is more than aspirational, and I think it is, and it does address a number of serious environmental concerns. In order to make it a reality, however, there are numerous issues that will have to be fully addressed, and that is why today's hearing is so important, an opportunity to hear from the public, from the members of city government, as to where the plan stands and what improvements are necessary to make the island accessible for all, principally those who are visiting their loved ones there. Other improvements include committing to fully developing ferry access possibilities in an equitable way to increase access for everybody. And even the plan acknowledges that ferry access constraints that will not change in the near term exist, and that there must be a way to maximize the potential of currently inaccessible locations of the island to increase future burial capacity. After decades of advocacy by so many New Yorkers, Hart Island finally has the chance and opportunity to become the dignified, accessible, and well-maintained place it should have always been. A place where those who have loved ones buried there can visit in a meaningful way and feel like they have all the resources and services and supports they need to be able to do so. But it will take a sustained effort and steadfast funding commitments from current and future policymakers to realize this objective. I myself have been out to Hart Island at least twice over my time in the council, and I've been both deeply moved by what I've seen there to learn the history and to learn about those who are buried there and the efforts that the Parks Department and other city agencies have made to address it as a burial ground. And I've also met with individuals who have relatives buried there and have heard from them about their concerns and what they want to see to make sure Hart Island remains accessible or even more accessible to them and many others in their position. And I take their views and their concerns very seriously. And that's why today all of us as chairs are here and have called this hearing to discuss these issues and hear how we can make Hart Island a better place for everyone. I look forward to examining the ways by which various city agencies and all interested parties can work together to improve Hart Island, to improve its vision, and to improve the city's public burial and remembrance process. Thank you.
Councilmember Lewis?
Good morning. I want to thank Deputy Speaker Ayala and Chairs Krishnan and Shulman for convening this important hearing as we work to address the inequities that exist in how our city allows families to grieve and honor their loved ones. I want to begin by acknowledging a family in my district who has experienced unimaginable loss. Last year on Labor Day, 25-year-old Denzel Chan, a young man visiting from Texas to celebrate his Guyanese heritage at the West Indian American Day Parade, was shot and killed in Crown Heights. What should have been a day of joy and community turned into tragedy for his family. In the days and weeks that followed, my office worked closely with Denzel's mother and relatives to help them navigate the aftermath of his death. What became painfully clear during that process was how difficult and dehumanizing it can be for a low-income family to lay their loved ones to rest with dignity. The Chan family faced numerous bureaucratic obstacles when trying to access burial assistance through the city's Human Resources Administration. The current cap on funeral assistance is $1,700, and the total funeral costs can't exceed $3,400, an amount that has not kept pace with reality. The National Funeral Directors Association reports that the median cost of a funeral and burial in the United States now exceeds $9,000, while even cremations can cost over $5,000 when including a viewing and ceremony. In New York City, the price of a cemetery niche to store and earn can range from $1,900 to $6,500. For many families, particularly Black, Latino, Jewish, and Muslim New Yorkers, these costs are simply insurmountable. Reso 775 calls on the state of New York to increase the funeral cost limit for low-income residents from $3,400 to $6,000. This adjustment would allow more families to afford a proper burial consistent with their cultural and religious traditions without facing the indignity of financial hardship during their time of grief. For communities like mine in East Flatbush, where residents often live paycheck to paycheck, this increase is a matter of compassion and fairness. No mother should have to plead for help to bury her child. No family should have to choose between honoring their loved one's memory and paying rent. By passing this resolution, we send a clear message that dignity in death is a right, not a privilege. I urge my colleagues to support Resolution 775 so that families like the Chans and so many others across our city never have to endure both loss and bureaucracy in the most painful moments. Thank you, chairs.
Thank you. We will now recognize our administrative panel, Matt Drury, Sarah Nielsen, Charles Handras, Vincent Ruggiero, and Matthew Brune. And with that, I will now call on Councilman Killowan to swear in members of the administration here to testify.
Will you all please raise your right hand? Do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in your testimony before this committee, and to respond honestly to council member questions? Matt Drury?
I do.
Sarah Nielsen?
I do.
Charles Handras?
I do.
Vincent Ruggiero III? I do. And Matthew Bruna.
I do.
Thank you all. You may begin.
Is anybody testifying today? Who's going first? Go ahead.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Matthew Bruni, and I serve as the Chief Operating Officer at the Department of Social Services, which includes the Human Resources Administration. I would like to thank Deputy Speaker Ayala, Chair Shulman, Chair Krishnan, and the members of the Committees on General Welfare, Health, and Parks and Recreation for holding today's hearing on the Hart Island Capital Project's proposal. We appreciate the Council's continued focus on ensuring that Hart Island serves as a respectful, dignified, and uplifting final resting place for more than 1 million New Yorkers. At HRA DSS, as with our sister agencies, we appreciate the tremendous responsibility that Hart Island represents. As both the Council and past mayoral administrations have recognized, Hart Island is unique. For more than 155 years, Hart Island has served as a resting place for New Yorkers, including veterans of every war since the Civil War, as well as individuals affected by every major public health crisis from the 1918 influenza pandemic to the height of the HIV/AIDS crisis in the 1980s, and to more recently, the COVID-19 pandemic. As stewards of Hart Island, we remain committed to honoring and respecting both the decedents and their loved ones. HRA DSS has a specialized role to play in this process. We understand the sensitivity that must accompany service to loved ones in a time of mourning and the circumstances applicants face as they determine if burial at Hart Island suits their needs. Management of Hart Island transitioned from the New York City Department of Corrections to New York City Parks and the Department of Social Services on July 1st, 2021. As part of that transition, HRA DSS assumed caretaker responsibilities for the island, managing basic maintenance and overseeing the interment and disinterment contract. We have worked in partnership with our colleagues at the Office of the Chief Medical Examiner and New York City Parks to ensure our administrative systems, whether around burial and interment or around visitation and locating information about loved ones, remain current and continue to serve the public's needs. Turning now to Introduction 1408, sponsored by Deputy Speaker Ayala. The bill, as written, would require HRA DSS, in collaboration with New York City Parks and any other relevant agency, to conduct a study to analyze Hart Island's capacity for future public burials under existing burial procedures, assess whether the procedures at Hart Island should be changed, and develop recommendations if any changes are determined appropriate. A report would then be submitted to the mayor, Speaker of the Council, and posted online with study findings and recommendations within 180 days of the local law's effective date. While HRA DSS welcomes the opportunity to conduct this study with parks, we are concerned that 180 days would not provide enough time to complete a thorough analysis and adequate time for contracting an expert consultant and publishing the report. So we are urging, again, a timeline of 18 months. I appreciate the opportunity to have offered this testimony on this important topic, and I would now turn it over to my colleague from the Office of the Chief Medical Examiner's Office for his testimony.
Thank you, Matt. Good morning, Deputy Speaker Ayala, Chairs Krishnan and Shulman, and committee members. I am Vincent Ruggiero. I am the Executive Director of Mortuary and Response Operations for the Office of Chief Medical Examiner. As you well know, the City Charter tasks OCME with providing city mortuary services to the entirety of New York City. One aspect of these city mortuary services provided by OCME to the families and loved ones of decedents in our custody is to aid them in facilitating final disposition of their loved ones for public burial at Hart Island if this option is selected. To this end, OCME Outreach Team regularly works to provide information and guidance to those seeking Hart Island as their loved one's final resting place, and works with our partners at DSS to ensure that their final wishes are honored. Eligible next of kin may request public burial at any time for either temporary or final disposition. There is no minimum requirement for this request, and families may elect to disinter their loved ones from Hart Island for private disposition at any time. Our outreach team also facilitates final disposition at Hart Island for decedents who have been brought into OCME's care and remain unclaimed. For cases where next of kin is unknown, OCME utilizes a due diligence process, known as the outreach due diligence, to locate and notify loved ones of the death to facilitate and determine final disposition. This process involves collaborations with several of our external agencies, including the city's public administrators, NYPD missing person units, and foreign consular offices. Cases where next of kin remain unknown are also posted to the National Missing and Unidentified Persons System, known as NamUs, which is searchable by the general public. Once all due diligence requirements have been met, any decedents which next of kin remain unknown and with no other eligible claimant will be referred for public burial at Hart Island. Once a case has been referred for public burial, OCME staff prepare decedents in caskets with care and place them on a specially equipped vehicle for transportation to Hart Island. Upon arrival at the Hart Island departure point, OCME staff connect with HRA staff and board the DOT ferry for a short ride to Hart Island. Our team proceeds to the gravesite and assists HRA designated staff with removing the decedents from our vehicle for immediate burial. A manifest containing information on all decedents is signed by both HRA and OCME, and burials completed by the HRA staff. OCME at times will request assistance from HRA to disinter decedents from Hart Island for further investigative or identification measures. We appreciate this opportunity to provide testimony that offers a window into the important but often invisible topic of burial at Hart Island. I would like to now offer the floor to my colleague at Parks for her testimony.
Good morning. Are we on? Good morning, Deputy Speaker Ayala, Chair Krishnan, Chair Schulman, members of the Parks, General Welfare, and Health Committees, and other council members. My name is Sarah Nielsen, and I serve as Chief of Policy and Long-Range Planning within Environment and Planning Division at New York City Parks. Joining me today are Matt Drury, Chief of Citywide Legislative Affairs, and Charles Handress, the Park Supervisor for Hart Island. We are also very pleased to have been joined by our colleagues at HRA DSS and OCME. We have slides, so you've also been given the packet of the PowerPoint, so we go to the next slide. I'm not sure who's clicking the slides, though. Okay, and I've been directed to describe the slide. So this is a map showing New York City, showing the location of Hart Island and a few recent pictures of the island. So thank you for having us today to talk about Hart Island. This holds a significant place in the city's history and has tremendous meaning for countless people in New York City, across the country, and around the world. As you've just heard from our sister agency colleagues, Hart Island serves as the city's public cemetery and is the final resting place of over 1 million individuals. It is one of the largest public cemeteries in the country and has served New York City since 1869. Next slide. This shows some historic and current images of the island. While Hart Island is currently only used for city burials, the island has had many uses since the 19th century, including a quarantine station, a psychiatric hospital, a tuberculosis ward, a reform school, a homeless shelter, a rehabilitation facility, a military base, and a jail. Pursuant to Local Law 210 of 2019, as Chair Krishnan mentioned, management of Hart Island was transferred from the New York City Department of Correction to the New York City Parks and the New York City Human Resources Administration and Department of Social Services in 2021. The city is committed to ensuring public access to the island and providing several services to help individuals locate and visit loved ones buried on the island. In an effort to make the island safe for guests and improve the visitor experience, major upgrades have already been made since the transfer of jurisdiction, including the demolition of many aging buildings and planting of new trees in woodland areas and a few seating and other amenities near the ferry dock. HRA DSS, which manages burials and landscaping on the island, has created more navigable conditions by clearing overgrowth that blocked grave plots for decades and constructing the seating area. Next slide. This is a photo of a burial area with grave markers. Since transfer to Parks, the gravesite visitation process for families and loved ones of those buried on the island, such as increasing capacity for each visit and shifting the visitation times to make it more convenient for families and loved ones of those buried, many of whom travel long distances to make the visit. We typically offer 2 visitation days per month, one on a Saturday and one on a Sunday, with 10 a.m. and 1 p.m. visits each of those days, so that's 4 per month. These visits are generally intended for individuals with close ties to someone buried on the island, and that includes family members, chosen family members, close friends, and partners. Since New York City Parks began hosting the gravesite visitations in October 2021, over 2,200 individuals have been able to visit their loved ones on the island. Can I have the next slide? This shows pictures of urban park rangers leading public tours. New York City Parks is proud of its dedicated ongoing effort to increase access to the island for the general public as well, while honoring the island's unique and solemn role as the final resting place for the deceased. In November 2023, we introduced free urban park ranger interpretive tours for the general public. These have been very well received. These tours mark the first time in the island's history that public tours have been offered. Since launching the program, the Urban Park Rangers have hosted over 1,100 participants on their twice-monthly public tours and nearly 220 students on individual school tours. The public tours are designed to inform visitors about the history of the island, reduce historical stigmas surrounding its past, to respectfully acknowledge those who are buried there, and to educate the public about the island's role as critical city infrastructure. Our initial Heart Island tours focused on the fascinating history of the northern part of the island, examining how this island not only became the city's public burial ground, but also housed institutions such as reformatory schools, rehab programs, and even a Nike missile base. We then diversified our programming in 2024 to offer tours of both the northern and southern portions of the island, providing visitors with opportunities to see more of the island and learn more about those who are laid to rest there, to highlight communities connected to Heart and share their voices. The Rangers are now continuing to explore the history through the development of thematic programming, including Pride Month, Prisoner Justice Day, and an upcoming Veterans Day program. Our Urban Park Rangers have hosted school groups at Heart Island through the Natural Classroom program, which gives students a firsthand experience to study sites of historic significance under Parks' jurisdiction. Can I have the next slide? This is an image of our concept plan. In addition to these efforts to expand public access to the island, New York City Parks, in coordination with other sister agency stakeholders, has recently completed the Heart Island Concept Plan. This is an improvement study for the island, presenting a longer-term vision for physical improvements. The concept plan seeks to preserve and enhance Heart Island as the contemplative, quiet, and spiritual place that the public discovers when they visit the island, and to improve the physical conditions and critical infrastructure on Heart to better serve those who visit and who manage the daily operations. Moreover, the plan seeks to honor the history and people who are laid to rest, as well as those who lived or worked on the island. Can I have the next slide? This is a screenshot from one of our public outreach meetings showing feedback from our participants. Our work to develop the concept plan began following the transfer of the property to Parks. As part of the process, we received detailed and comprehensive public input from community members through 2 well-attended virtual forums and a digital survey. Participants expressed a strong desire for New York City Parks to prioritize the experience of family members visiting loved ones, including providing restrooms, shade, and seating. In addition, we heard a clear preference to preserve the passive and contemplative character of the island, and that visits there should remain a peaceful experience for the family members. Next slide. This is a rendering of our proposed Welcome Center. The goal of the concept plan is to improve conditions on the island while making it easier and more comfortable for the public to visit and pay their respects. As of now, the visitor experience to the island remains fairly austere. There are no restrooms, there's very limited seating, as well as limited protection from extreme heat, rain, or other conditions. Can I have the next slide? This is a graphic with our key elements of the planning framework. The concept plan outlines a vision of potential capital projects in response to operational needs and public input, while taking into consideration the ongoing logistical necessities of burial operations being proudly overseen by our agency partners. Enhancements to the island are also needed to ensure its ecological communities and shorelines can be made resilient to erosion from coastal storms due to sea level rise and global warming. The concept plan is meant to help the city make strategic investments and identify necessary funding to improve the island. Can I have the next slide? So these are renderings of the proposed projects in the capital plan. The concept plan focuses on capital projects that are within the purview of New York City Parks to develop and implement, such as a modest Welcome Center building, a concept for adaptive reuse of the island's historic chapel as a sacred space for remembrance, site-wide circulation enhancements to make the island more accessible, and restoration and stabilization approaches for the natural areas and historic resources, as well as, not least, the upgraded maintenance and operations compound. Can I have the next slide? This is a map of Heart Island showing kind of the location and layout of the proposed capital projects. The plan also includes landscape management recommendations that would extend the burial capacity of the island. We believe these proposed projects will help augment the additional active capital work that is already underway, including the current project that DOT is working on to upgrade the ferry landing and the almost complete DDC project to stabilize the historic chapel. Can I have the next slide, which is also the last slide? This is a photo of the shoreline at Hart, and it has our vision statement. In closing, our vision for Hart Island's future seeks to balance moderately and incrementally increased public access while honoring its significance for families and loved ones of those interred there. Our vision statement was formed in response to these priorities: a contemplative, quiet, and spiritual place. Visitors come to be close to family members and loved ones, to engage with New York City's history, and to admire the natural beauty of the island. As New York City's public cemetery, Hart Island provides the essential service of burials for those most in need. Thank you for allowing us to testify before you today and for your continued advocacy and support for our city parks. We and our colleagues at HRA, DSS, and OCME will now be happy to answer your questions.
Thank you. Give me one second. I want to recognize that we've also been joined by Councilmember Linda Lee. Can you tell us if the, this is for DSS, is the transfer of administration of burial operations on Hart Island from the DOC to HRA fully complete?
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Was the question, is it the transfer complete?
Yes.
First time? Yes, it's fully complete.
Okay. How do HRA and Parks coordinate the administration of Hart Island? Like, which agency is responsible for which aspects, and what does leadership look like?
Thank you. Broadly speaking, the island itself is part of Parks' portfolio, and my colleague just outlined, obviously, the concept plan. At HRA, we are principally responsible, in conjunction with OCM, for conveying decedents to Hart Island, for interments, which happens once or twice a week based on volume. Also, disinterments, for which there's a well-articulated process. When family members discover, typically at a later point, that a family member with whom they may have lost touch is on the island, there's a process to disinter the remains and transfer them to the family. And also another major responsibility is landscaping and maintenance of the island to ensure that it remains a respectful, tranquil, dignified place. And again, Parks, as I said, it's within their portfolio, so we work with them collaboratively on routine maintenance projects, looking at potential shore stabilization projects and other projects to ensure the integrity of the island so that it can continue to receive decedents today and into the future.
So who handles the burials and the disinterments? Is that Parks?
I beg your pardon?
Burials and disinterments, is that Park?
No, we perform that. There is a procedure. In fact, we just launched an updated system called the Cemetery Management Tracking System, CMTS, which is the successor to the Department of Corrections database, which was in existence for many years and served its purpose of essentially being a lookup for people to see if a loved one is on the island. The CMTS, which was actually just launched a few weeks ago, was created in collaboration with OCME and Parks and contains a whole host of functionality, which includes scheduling visitations and allowing funeral directors to come online, basically open up a case and schedule a disinterment process with HRA DSS.
So does the agency staff the burial operations on the island? The agency does staff the burial operations?
Yes, I should hopefully be responsive to your question, Deputy Speaker.
Yes.
We have on-site HRA staff that are there every day who are not only working with Parks and other OCM personnel, but are also overseeing our contractor, JPL, which actually does the burial and disinterments and the landscaping and maintenance.
Okay, and do you know what the compensation rate for Hart Island burial workers is?
I can tell you, for the city staff, we're budgeted for 9 staff at about $784,000.
For how many positions?
9 positions.
9? Okay. According to Checkbook NYC, DSS contracts with J. Pizzaruso Landscaping Corporation for municipal cemetery burial operations at Hart Island. What was the total contract value, and can you share what work this contract consists of?
The current contract value in this fiscal year and out years is pretty identical. It's for the JPL contract, it's almost 8.1 million. And then additionally, within our budget code, we have the DOT Intercity Ferry, which is a little over $1 million. So the total within our budget code is about $9.1 million this fiscal year and also the out fiscal years.
Okay. And the original contract ended in June of '24. It was renewed.
Correct.
Does DSS intend to renew this contract again, or will there be another RFP?
Thank you. You're correct, we're currently in a renewal. We would anticipate putting out a competitive procurement as soon as next year.
As soon as next year?
Yes, to rebid the services. We're currently in a renewal. There could be an extra year built in there, but at this point, it's our intention at some point next year to develop and put out a competitive procurement.
Do we know how many people applied for financial support from HRA for funeral expenses in the past year, and how many received that financial support?
Yes, certainly. In the last FY25, the last full fiscal year for which we have data, to the Office of Burial Services, there were 2,348 applications, of which 818 were approved, which is about 35%.
Why were so many denied?
The reasons for denial are typically not compliance with documentation. It's a 120-day period, from the time someone dies that a typically family would have to submit documentation, which would include documentation from the cemetery director, a death certificate, documented expenses relating to the burial. So there is a 120-day time frame to submit those documents, but regrettably, unfortunately, some families, in spite of that, are not able to submit all the documentation that's needed. But I will note, too, in the 120-day time frame, there is a 30-day extension if needed. So if I can just take a step further, what happens currently with the Office of Burial Assistance which is located at one of our HRA locations in Long Island City, the application submission is made. Staff based there will review it and will outreach, again, typically to family members to talk about the documentation, what's needed, what might be missing. It's generally a process that works well, but we obviously would like to see the percentage of approvals increase. Obviously, we at HRA-DSS is a large agency. We serve many people at many parts of their lives, and obviously the Office of Burial Assistance represents a difficult moment in people's lives. So we would like to see the percentage go up. And we have a system that's called the Burial Assistance Information Tracking System, BATES, which has served its purpose, but it's a legacy system, and it's not public-facing. In February 2026, we're going to launch BATES 2, we're calling it, which will allow applicants actually to create an online account, to submit an application online, to upload documents, and additionally funeral homes to upload documents as well. And also it'll provide an ability, above and beyond our staff being available to answer questions, it'll provide ability to track the progress of the claim and send and receive messages and send alerts when activities have been completed. So it's our speculation that when that is launched next year, we should see an increase in percentage of approved applications.
I think it would make the process a lot smoother, but if a person is not submitting documentation via mail, I don't know what would encourage them. I don't know. It may. I'm hoping. I hope that it does work, because it's an alarming, rate of folks that are not receiving the resources that they probably, really needed in order to apply. And so would love to see that number be a little bit higher than that.
Yes.
And, for DSS to do some sort of analysis to determine like what are the impediments, like is it just, documentation, what type of documentation, is it like pertinent information? That's not, I remember going through through that process with a lot of families during the COVID pandemic.
Yes.
And it felt smooth enough for us. So our experiences were good, but we also have access to fax machines and other emails, and many families don't. And so I think that a clearer analysis to determine like what are the reasons for why families are not producing documentation, and also is there a contact between staff and the applicants? Like,
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And taking all your points into consideration, Deputy Speaker, I agree. We would like to see the percentage be higher. I think some of the processes, not just the system itself, are legacy. I think this will move us into a better environment. And I think as we've seen with our systems where we've moved them online, there's a great appetite by applicants and clients. I think Access HRA is a great example of that, where our clients can essentially meet all the needs of their case: food stamps, cash assistance, rental assistance, other benefits online. So we're hoping and assuming that we'll see a similar uptake, and I think also to the burial assistance services has a good online footprint, and I think also has a really good FAQ, not just for families, but also for funeral directors and CBOs and others who might assist families at this difficult time.
Do you know how many of the 2,348 were COVID related?
Expired? I don't. The two leading ones are failure to submit documentation within the 120 days. The second leading one is costs exceeding $3,400. But we can certainly come back to you with a breakout of all the categories and reasons for denial.
Yeah. Who sets that policy, like at the 3,400 limit? Like who concluded that was the number?
It is because we have the ability to claim a share against the state. It is set forth and promulgated in conjunction with the state, specifically the Office of Temporary and Disability Assistance. And so there are some claiming considerations that go into that, and that dictates the levels.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. There's no way. I mean, I don't know if they're keeping tabs on what it costs to have, services for a loved one these days, but it's pretty expensive. And so people are scrambling, getting, money from whatever, spaces and places they can get it to be able to, send their loved ones off in a dignified manner. And to like put a cap on that, it's just, if they qualify for it, they qualify for it. Like I don't understand why there would be a cap. It doesn't make any sense to me, and it just really infuriates me when I see that. Every time I remember about it, I get upset all over again.
Mm-hmm.
Do we know how many individuals were buried on Hart Island following a death due to COVID-19 pandemic, and how many of these have since been disinterred and buried elsewhere?
Yes. So obviously, 2020 was the height of the pandemic, and as was alluded to earlier, I think we all saw the images, the overhead images of Hart Island. It was an enormously distressing and sobering time for the city. What we saw in 2020, we'll compare it to 2019. In 2020, at the height of the pandemic, there were 2,743 burials, the vast majority of which were adults. In the prior year, 2019, there were 1,138. So what you saw, of course, in 2020 is the burial rate increased by 2.5 times. And I'm very proud to say that the city met the need and ensured that in spite of a pandemic, everyone received a respectful burial. We then saw the following year, 2021, that burials sort of reverted to prior levels. So really 2020 was the spike here for pandemic deaths.
But how many of how many of the bodies that were buried at Hart Island that were COVID-related deaths, do we know how many of those individuals were disinterred and buried elsewhere?
I can tell you that we routinely do disinterment requests, and I can't tell you specifically how many were disinterred as a result of COVID-19 deaths, but just looking at 2020, for instance, 27 disinterments occurred. 2021, there were 8. And then the following years to the present, it generally ranges from 70 to 90 a year. But, you know, I should note that our agency, we are not principally focused on the cause of death. I mean, I think we all know intuitively that the spike on Hart Island in 2020 was due to the pandemic, but obviously our remit is to ensure that people are buried respectfully.
So you're saying that you roughly get around 70 to 90 requests for disinterment a year?
That's right.
That's the number.
That's right.
Are those, or maybe this is for somebody else, but are those numbers reflective of individuals that recently passed, where family maybe wasn't contacted, or are these older cases?
It's an interesting question, and one I've not looked at in terms of how far back someone's being disinterred as opposed to someone more recently, like within a few months. But we can work with our colleagues and do a sample from the last full fiscal year, and we can put a face to that.
Yeah, I'm very curious about this process, but I'm trying to determine whether, because I know I've worked with the Office of Medical Examiner, you know, on several occasions where we've had, you know, individuals that have passed away and they didn't have any family, and they've been really good about holding the body while we try to identify someone. But I wonder how, you know, in a case where somebody like me is not calling and saying, hey, can you hold the body, like, is that process maybe not long enough, right? Where we're holding it and then burying the individual, and that's creating, right, more and more disinterments to occur than, you know, we should be probably having.
Right. I think, and I would defer to my colleague from OCME, I think they have a really robust process to do outreach, to work with families, to make determinations, and I think, not sure if you have promulgated timeframes before a decedent might move to Hart Island, but
So typically, our outreach process takes between 30 and 60 days. Of course, it's very case dependent, right? Everybody's circumstances differ. Some cases are more complex, and a number of those go over the 60 days. I don't know if that helps answer your question, but like you referred to, we are very, you know, understanding, and will hold remains until.
Yeah, but you typically can hold up to 60 days, and if there's a request or an unusual circumstance, it can be longer.
Absolutely, yes.
Okay. Are you aware of how many individuals were buried at Hart Island that were maybe with your office for 30 days?
So those data points I don't necessarily have in front of me. I can get those back to you.
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out. Right.
The lesser timeline is typically when family, you know, is present, requests burial at Hart Island. Obviously, those are a little, you know, less demanding on the outreach process. It's family requests. It's easier to accommodate. It's when, you know, circumstances of decedents, you know, especially more complex cases that take longer.
Yeah.
I think we're closer to the 60 days than the 30 days. But you know, we will grant extensions when needed, and you know, we understand everybody's circumstances are different.
Okay, I'm going to ask just a few questions more, and then I'll come back for a second round. I want my colleagues to be able to ask questions as well. Does HRA have a contingency plan for another municipal cemetery, Hart Island, run out of burial room, and what is it?
Thank you for the question. So working closely with our colleagues in Parks, we have been looking at that question for a few years now, We have determined, based on the presentation that my colleague from Parks just did, and the timing of the plan, of course, is uncertain, but taking, I think, a prudent and conservative, more conservative view, we have determined that presently, with the changes that Parks is proposing in its capital plan, there is currently about 18 years of remaining capacity, which is, so, you know, I would say that we are not at the moment concerned about capacity, but it is one of the reasons we also welcome the potential local law to do the capacity study, as well as looking at other methods of burial to potentially extend the life cycle of the island and the burials. Lift and deepen would be an example of that. I think it's something we would want to give a much fuller viewing. Cremation is a possibility, although there are environmental concerns there. But as we sit here today, and I think I heard reference at the beginning, there was an earlier report that said there were about 8 years of capacity remaining. And at that point, that was likely the case, but in the interim, of course, DDC was funded to virtually take down all the buildings, which unlocked more capacity. And so you overlay Parks' proposed capital plans. A conservative view would be that there's about 18 years of capacity.
So it's interesting because the environmental concerns, right, and I get that. If we were to put a crematorium at Hart Island, you know, are of interest, right? But so the fact that we're not using cremation as an alternative, is that a policy? Is that like legally required? Like, what is it, a preference?
It's, you know, it has come up before, Deputy Speaker, and it came up in one of the early reports that was looked at. I mean, just practically speaking, if there was a desire to install a crematorium on Hart Island, there's essentially no power running the island currently. Also, we noted some of the environmental concerns that would need to be looked at. But two, again, I think in looking at potentially doing the capacity study under an enacted local law, it would give us an opportunity to do, I think, a much more multi-dimensional view, which would include the question of potentially using crematoriums, because all faiths and religions have differing views on cremating bodies as a practice. And so in the instance in which a loved one's out of touch with a family member, depending on their faith or their religion, they could learn that this person was at Hart Island, but under a newly enacted policy of cremation, the body was cremated, which would be contrary to their beliefs. So that's part of the work we want to do.
But wouldn't the same apply for an individual that, you know, I don't know, practices a specific religion that requires that they be buried at a specific amount of time? Or, I mean, wouldn't the same apply? It seems like the same thing to me.
It's a fair point, and I think that would merit further evaluation and a study. But in that instance, at a minimum, if it is problematic to someone's individual or family beliefs, the body would be there for them to disinter it and dispose of it the way in which they saw fit.
So I'm going to get a little bit morbid here. So if anybody's watching online, this may be a moment, it's a warning, because I'm really curious about this from a public health perspective. So first of all, DSS determined that they were going to increase the number of burials per site from 150 to 200. I would love to learn, you know, how that decision was, how you arrived at that decision. But I'm always concerned if you have 150, 200 people buried in a mass grave, and then somebody needs to be disinterred, a family member comes in, they put in a request. How do we identify where that individual is? And because of the fact that these individuals are buried in wooden pine boxes, I'm assuming that not embalmed, that
That's correct.
The body's decomposing at a faster rate. And so who is handling, right, these remains at that time? Is there any public health concern, right, with coming in contact with elements under those conditions? And how do you handle that?
Sure. Thank you, Deputy Speaker. So in terms of, you're right, there was a decision enacted in 2024 to increase the capacity of each plot from 150 caskets to 200. That was actually a recommendation from one of the early reports. That effectively increases the capacity by 25%. In taking your point about whether it's 150 caskets or today 200 caskets, tracking them within a plot so that if there is a disinterment request that you're securing and removing the right casket. There is meticulous documentation from the time the decedent is at OCME and the decedent's placed into a pine box in a OCME truck that comes to the City Island dock, which is then drives onto a DOT ferry, which then makes the short ride to Hart Island. OCME staff, HRA staff, and its vendor JPL staff are present. They escort that, the caskets, which happens about once or twice a week, to the currently utilized burial plot. And all along the way, there's documentation and signing off to document who the decedents are. And then when the decedents are placed into the plot, it's essentially diagrammed, so you know within a 200 caskets where the individual decedents are. And to take a step further, DOC's database, which is, as I mentioned, has been replaced by the recently launched cemetery management tracking system, always offered plot information where a decedent was. And there were obviously visitations prior to Parks and HRA taking over. But with CMTS, in continuing to provide publicly accessible burial information, the overall experience has been improved because we are using, and have used for a few years, GPS tracking. So obviously, if we're physically on the island, we know where a burial plot is because it's marked. But because things can shift over time, however incrementally, we do GPS tracking of each plot. And you can actually see that in the recently launched public site. You can see a map that has all the plots. And then if you basically click on one, you'll see all the decedents in there with additional information on each decedent. So if you're a family member looking them up, you'll know exactly where they're buried on the island.
And I'm assuming that there's documentation, photographs, or whatever it is that, whatever way you document an individual's without a name, so that family can identify that is in fact their relative, right?
Yes. So,
like, you haven't ever given somebody the wrong body, have?
Right. Generally, I would say more than, it's my understanding more than half of the burials on Hart Island that originate from OCME. These are family members who want their family members to be there. There are obviously people who are sadly go unclaimed. That's the minority of cases. But generally, there's identifying information on them. And in fact, one of the things that we did with our upgraded cemetery management tracking system is obviously we uploaded the DOC data and the data that we've compiled since we took over the island. But we also worked with other city agencies to fill in missing fields where we could, to provide as much data for people when they look up someone. And generally the records date from the late 70s to the present period.
My final question, could you tell me why is it, so I've actually been to the island, and I will say the Parks Department has done a really fantastic job of maintaining the space and trying to incorporate features and things that make the familial experience a lot better. But how often are families coming in and out of, they're coming to visit on Saturdays and Sundays, is my understanding, right? On weekends only. How many people are going to actually visit? Like, what's the demand?
I would defer to Parks. They oversee that process, and there's a very good process available through the new CMTS.
Yeah, thanks, and thank you for the question. So I'll turn it over to Charles, our park supervisor for Hart Island, in a moment, but I will just note that since stepping in and taking over jurisdiction and management, over 3,500 individuals have visited the island as either part of a gravesite visit or the sort of historic ranger-led tour programming. So collectively, over 35 individuals dating, so that's since mid-2021 or so.
But that's including staff and what,
No,
oh, that's
those are-
families.
Those are public, yeah,
Okay.
public members. But I'll hand it over to Charles to talk a little bit more about the breakdown there between gravesite and public visits.
Okay.
Thank you for the question, Councilmember Chair. So just to echo my colleague's point, we have had, since the jurisdiction transfer to the Parks Department, we have currently had over 2,200 attendees on our gravesite visitations. So that's, family members, chosen family, friends, all the people who request to do visitations. That's
So
just gravesite visits.
What is the average on a weekend,
The number does fluctuate seasonally. During the summer months or during, Mother's Day weekend, Father's Day weekend, those are generally our highest attendance numbers, usually closer to about 35 people or more, sometimes more per trip on each of those days.
Okay. I just wanted to recognize that we were also joined by Councilmember Banks, De La Rosa, Ang, Feliz, who's on Zoom, and Narcisse. Councilmember Krishnan?
Thank you so much, Deputy Speaker. Before I start my questions, I'm going to turn it over briefly to Councilmember Bottcher, who's worked with me on this issue and has a couple questions before he has to go.
Thank you so much. I only have one question, and I appreciate the courtesy, and I want to thank the co-chairs for this hearing, and I want to thank Councilmember Krishnan in particular for his leadership on this issue as the Parks Committee Chair. We've been meeting with the family members and advocates involved with Hart Island, and very happy we're having this hearing today. I'm here as the co-chair of the City Council's LGBTQIA+ caucus, and also as the representative for Council District 3, West Village, Chelsea, Hell's Kitchen, which was the epicenter of death during the worst days of the HIV/AIDS crisis. And Hart Island occupies a very unique place in the story of our community. It's a place that for 150 years has been a place of both heartbreak and grace, a resting place for over 1 million New Yorkers, many of whom died during the HIV/AIDS crisis, rejected by their families, unmarked graves. And for too long, the island was hidden away, out of sight, out of mind. And people couldn't visit, they couldn't visit, they couldn't mourn. Luckily, in recent years, that's been changing. I'm so proud to be part of this council that's been part of that. Under my predecessor, Speaker Corey Johnson, with the management of the island transferred to the Parks Department from Department of Corrections, expanded ferry service, families can now pay their respects. I want to thank all of you here for today for your part that you've played in that. But even though we've made progress, we have a long way to go. And my question is, how are you involving the family members in this process? I want to commend the family members who are here today, who are advocating for a better process at Hart Island, more opportunities to visit Hart Island, more dignity for those who are buried at Hart Island. But how are you including them in the process? How often are you meeting with them? How are you taking their feedback into consideration? How are you making them part of the process so that they, in my opinion, they should have the biggest voice of anyone, the people who are the family members of those buried at Hart Island?
Thanks for the question, Councilmember. And an excellent point. I think survivors and loved ones of those buried on the island are a primary stakeholder, and I think there are a variety of different ways in which they've been engaged and are engaged, and that can happen both on sort of a day-to-day basis. You know, we're receiving direct feedback during visitations. You know, we've made policy changes and process changes in response to direct feedback from you know, visitors and loved ones taking part in those gravesite visitations. But I can also note that there also families of loved ones buried on the island were also part of the, you know, concept plan exercise when we had our, you know, public-facing meetings and things of that nature. So I think there's a variety of fashions in which, you know, that feedback is very important. You know, because at the end of the day, you know, no one wants to lose sight of the primary function of this island and making sure that it remains a, you know, a solemn and meaningful place of remembrance.
You're meeting with them frequently?
I would characterize interaction and engagement as ongoing. You know, it's sort of, we are, you know, we have direct staff, you know, as a team that's directly assigned to oversee operations at the island, working closely with various divisions within our agency, whether that's our planning team, our Parks Enforcement Patrol Honor Guard that helps accompany gravesite visitations, our urban park rangers that lead the public-facing tours, you know, our forestry team, our, you know, capital team, you name it. So I think internally, there is a dedicated effort to make sure that we're always listening. I mean, frankly, that's something we pride ourselves on throughout our park system, right? In terms of parks, playgrounds, recreation centers, what have you. I think this is an approach, whether it's through any variety of, you know, whether it's formalized meeting or a more informal kind of dialogue. Those can take, the nature of that can vary for sure, but I'd say those are ongoing.
Thank you so much, Councilmember Bottcher. It's good to see you all, and thank you so much for your testimony, too. I just wanted to follow up on a couple of things that Councilmember Bottcher mentioned as part of my questions. First, I want to thank the Parks Department team for taking me out and a team of us out multiple times now to see the site. And I want to in particular thank our Ranger Charles Hondras here, the supervisor of Hart Island, who's done a great job as taking care of the island and also giving us a very informed tour as well. You know, I appreciate your service and proud to know that a constituent is there overseeing Hart Island too. So thank you. And I remember on the last visit, you all gave us a lot of history about it too, and you in particular did so, as well as the other rangers and PEP officers as well. So I also want to underscore the point that Councilmember Bottcher made too, which in my visits to Hart Island, really it is such a, as I mentioned before, somber place, and you all in talking about the history and documenting it have made that clear as we visited too. And I think really two memories of the visit always stand out to me. One is both hearing about and also being aware of the number of individuals during the HIV/AIDS crisis who have been buried there, the role and the issues that have been there, given the fact that there are so many, as Councilmember Bottcher mentioned, from the LGBTQ+ community who have been buried there too, and that history as well. That's very much impacted me, as has visiting the grave sites of babies and children who have been buried there as well. And, you know, I think all of those things, and then of course hearing from, as Councilmember Bottcher mentioned, when we've met with family members talking about their family who's been buried there too, it always stays with us and leaves a deep impact about the importance of making sure that the place remains and is honored as a burial ground, and that the family members who are the most directly impacted by the changes, their voices are heard through the process of envisioning and redesigning it. So one question I have before getting to my other ones is, would you all be open, and I expect you would be, for, I know you've had conversations during the process, but I'd love for both Councilmember Bottcher and I to be able to meet with you all and facilitate a meeting with some of the members of family members too, who have probably communicated with some of them during the process, but I think I speak for both Councilmember Bottcher and I and say that we'd appreciate being able to facilitate that meeting with you all, and so we can make sure their voices are heard too as part of this process.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, we are always open to engaging with and making sure that folks, you know, feel heard. And you know, like I think we would characterize there's a decent degree of likelihood that there has been a degree of interaction already, but to the degree that, that's something where we are just always stand ready to make sure we can sit down and kind of hear from folks that are most directly involved and impacted by the activity on the island, for sure.
Great, thank you. And now just going over just, some other questions that are related to, but can you discuss just generally, since Parks took over jurisdiction of the island in 2021, what are some of the improvements that have been made to date?
That's a great question, Councilmember, and thank you. We're actually quite proud of the work that's happened. As I might have noted earlier, it's been not only an interagency effort, as you can see here today, but within Parks, an interdivisional effort. I think there's been a really dedicated, focused effort to improve the visitor experience, and I'm going to turn it over to Charles to highlight a few of the policy changes and programming changes that have happened over the years. But I think most notably, the introduction of public-facing tours for folks that aren't necessarily visiting a specific individual or a loved one. I think making those available, helped introduce a whole new universe of individuals to the really fascinating and important history of the island. And so we're quite proud. Those visits have been very, very well received. They're conducted extremely respectfully and provide really, but I would argue that's part of the most notable new development, but I'll turn to Charles to provide a few more examples.
Sure.
Thank you for the question, Chair. So we're proud to say that Parks has made several improvements to the way that we conduct our gravesite visitations for the family members and loved ones of those who are left behind. Some of the highlights that we'll include is easing of some of the restrictions from the Department of Corrections era. People are now allowed to bring their phones and other belongings on their visits where they may not have been allowed to prior under the DOC administration. We don't require photo identification when people are coming to their visit. All we need to know is that they're part of the reservation list that they've made in advance. We've also increased the visitation capacity for these gravesite visits. During the DOC era, they were able to accommodate 25 visitors per trip. We've been able to increase that up to about 35 people per trip, sometimes a little bit more. And we're also proud to say that we've been able to adjust the visitation times based on the feedback that we've been getting over the years from the family members and loved ones who come on these visits. They requested a shift in the time to a slightly later time frame. So we've switched it to 10 a.m. and 1 p.m. to make it a little bit easier for people who are often traveling from out of state and even from outside of the country to visit. And through our agency partners at the Department of Transportation, we were able to adjust the visitation schedule to also now include Father's Day weekend and Mother's Day weekend as well, at the request of the visitors.
Thank you. And can you describe just a bit more about the gravesite visitation process? So the ferries, the times, and then what happens when families get to the island itself. But it'd be great to hear in a bit more detail about the whole process.
Sure, thank you for the question. So generally speaking, our gravesite visitations, as we've mentioned prior, they happen 2 days per month, one Saturday per month and one Sunday per month, with a 10 a.m. and a 1 p.m. trip on each of those visits. Families and loved ones can request these visitations either by going onto the Heart Island website and requesting these visitations through the digital request form. They can also email our office or they can call our office, whichever is easier for them, and they can set up a reservation request. That request will need to be submitted at least 5 business days in advance, and we've been able to accommodate basically everybody that has wanted to make their visits. As noted before, the busy season does usually have a higher visitorship, so occasionally we may need to offer an alternative time or alternative date, such as maybe a 10 a.m. visit if the 1 p.m. visit has already reached maximum capacity.
Thank you. And I also want to recognize that we've been joined by Councilmember Caban online, and then Councilmember Ariola as well. Just going back to the projects, now there's a few different ones addressing a number of different things, but given the plan, which projects are most urgent in terms of shoring up the island's infrastructure, ensuring the safety of visitors and workers? What would you say the priority list is?
It's a great question, and the concept plan was obviously we're quite proud. It required a lot of very time and staff intensive, a lot of great work by our planning division, and to provide a little more detail, I'm going to hand it over to Chief Nielsen.
Hi, thank you. Really appreciate the question and the opportunity to say a little more about the projects. We set them up in sort of an open way so that depending on what funding comes through first, we could sort of take whichever route. We do think that we'll be putting forward the request for the visitor center as our first one. Again, just leaning into this, wanting to bring the families out, the visitors out, but a little bit more comfortable than it is now, that we could start with that and then add the other projects as funding is available. Although if all the funding came at once, we would accommodate that too.
Thank you. And what's the total amount of funding in the Parks Department budget related to Hart Island for fiscal year 26 and in the out years?
So the agency doesn't structure its budget by property, but we can kind of characterize the sort of, team, if you will, that kind of, in terms of from a staffing perspective, there is a Hart Island specific team of 2 that's year-round, full-time individuals that's sort of ensconced within our Bronx Borough Parks operations team. But I think it's important to note that there are many other divisions that provide, very steady on-the-ground support, including our urban park rangers, because ranging from 2 to 4 of those will accompany each of the public tours. Our Parks Enforcement Patrol Honor Guard that accompanies the grave site visitations, that can range from 4 to 5. So, and then that's not to mention the other sort of divisions that often have occasion to help support activities on the island, whether that's forestry team, the Capitol Division overseeing like ongoing work, et cetera, planning, et cetera, et cetera. So, I don't have a dollar figure for you because that's just not how our budget's structured, but except to say that it is, I would argue, a particularly unique property within our portfolio that, requires and merits sort of a really strong intra-agency approach.
Got it. And just going back to, I think before we were talking about the gravesite visitation process. Currently, as you all mentioned, with Ferry Service, there are 2 opportunities a month for family members to visit. And what we've also heard from family members too is that because it's only twice a month, sometimes it can be very difficult or impossible to be able to visit a relative at a special day or for a certain milestone when they want to go be with their loved ones. And I'm just wondering what steps the Parks Department and other city agencies have taken to find ways to increase visitation. So for example, part of this plan is improving ferry service as well. So what's been explored there in terms of increasing ferry capacity to allow for more visits, or are there other options as well? How can we make it make access easier and more frequent for those visiting their families?
Yeah, thanks for the question, Councilmember, and it's a good point. I think there's been a lot of thought about how to strategically, increase capacity. And first and foremost, I think I would, state pretty clearly that there is more opportunity now to visit the island than there was in the previous era. So, we're not resting on any laurels, but I do want to be very clear that, those opportunities have increased significantly. Having said that, we are very much open and interested in thoughtful, incremental increases, commensurate with, the demand, as Charles noted. So thus far, we are largely able to accommodate, folks that are interested in gravesite visitations. But having said that, there's no denying that some folks have to travel from further away, and the scheduling, by definition, since it needs to be managed access by its physical location, sort of by definition, we acknowledge and appreciate that there can sometimes be, conflicts or inconveniences that come with that. So we are definitely interested, and that's something we're very actively exploring. And I think that was one of the themes that sort of imbued our concept plan work as well.
I think that'd be good to discuss further, and I look forward to it too, especially with family members as well, to hear about what their concerns are and how we can address it together as part of this process. Similarly, I think one thing that's come to our attention as well too, and we talked about it a bit on the visit as well, is how do we make sure when members come to the island, I know there are rangers, PEP officers there to escort them, to make sure they can go to the right place. But of course, they're coming with in a very painful, difficult moments. Could be trauma associated with it too. How do we make sure that our Parks Department staff have the requisite training, even for their benefit too, as Parks Department representatives, that they have the requisite training to be able to provide and work with family members who may be grieving or have other difficult and painful memories. Are there training programs offered currently? Is there discussion about increasing those training programs or having dedicated personnel that have had experience with trauma and work and grief counseling to work with families when they come to the island?
It's an excellent question, and one of the things we're most proud of is the nature and character of the visits. I think one of our core goals as we stepped into this role overseeing the island is to make sure that the visitation experience, which had been described by some as less than ideal in previous eras, we wanted to make sure that it could be conducted as thoughtfully and sensitively as possible. To characterize that a little further, I'll hand it over to Charles to talk a little bit about the way in which the visits are staffed and handled.
Thank you again for the question. So to expand on the gravesite visitations, so as previously mentioned, our gravesite visitations are conducted by members of our Parks Enforcement Patrol, but specifically by our Honor Guard unit. Our Honor Guard unit is comprised of members who, in addition to attending and officiating various events that Parks participates in, they are also the unit that serves on funerals, especially for members of service, even within our own department. So these folks, these officers and sergeants and other staff in the Parks Enforcement Patrol Honor Guard unit, they are very experienced and well-versed in attending to the needs of people who are experiencing grief at the loss of a loved one.
I think it's something good to keep in mind too as we move forward with the plans as well. Just a couple more questions, and I'm going to turn it over to my other co-chair. We've also heard from families that sometimes when they visited, I think we've discussed on the visit as well, but gravesite markers may have been placed in different locations during their visits, and it's been a concern for them too. So how do we ensure that both that doesn't happen, or we train the Parks Department personnel so they know where to place the markers and make sure there's accuracy?
Thanks for the question, and I think Charles will be able to speak to the process that sort of immediately precedes a visitation day of that nature. But also, as you heard, our colleagues at HRA DSS, having upgraded the database, the sort of master database, that is a hugely important resource for this effort. So I think collectively we have seen and will see significant improvements on that front. But I'll turn it to Charles to talk a little bit about sort of the marking, if you will, that takes place.
Thank you again. So regarding the marking of the gravesites, so in advance of the visits, when a family member or loved one requests a visit, goes through our office, we search through the available official records of where the decedents are located, and we send the exact the locations, the plots, to our staff over at the Parks Enforcement Honor Guard. They make the physical trip in advance out to the island to put on the temporary markers of where within that plot that specific decedent, the deceased person, is laid to rest, and they'll put that out there in advance. And again, this is based off of the official records that we have access to in coordination with our colleagues at HRA.
Thank you. And finally, what funding has been set aside for the plan going forward? And are there opportunities for the Parks Department to continue hearing from affected stakeholders as you move forward with the plans to improve them, which I think from the discussions we're having today, I think that could be very valuable as well.
Yeah, that's a great question, and thanks so much. Currently, the projects that are identified in the concept plan, which was, again, just recently released, those projects are not technically funded, though I should note that there is very active work, very much underway, capital projects, including, DOT work on the ferry landing, DDC's project to stabilize the chapel, some shoreline restoration projects, et cetera, et cetera. So there is active work and investment that is very much underway. Separate and apart from that, we are open to any and all. We're exploring various funding opportunities in close court. We have ongoing conversations with Mayor's Office and OMB. Obviously, they're familiar. They're aware of the plan, very familiar with the vision. And then turning to the notion of, in terms of input and feedback, whenever we undergo a planning exercise, whether it's a concept plan or anything similar to that, that's never the end of the story for us, right? Like, I think as an agency, we pride ourselves on listening and making sure whether it's direct feedback from our park visitors and users on a day-to-day basis to any of our park staff, or 311 calls or correspondence we've received, or even just staff observations, like out there, out there on the ground. So yes, I think we see this as an ongoing sort of, dynamic and never-ending process, right? Like, this is something we're always going to learn. Just in the last few years alone, we've learned a lot. This is in the grand scheme of things, this is a very new effort, and so I think we are really excited that it's been well received. We're proud of the work that's already happened, but we don't see this as any sort of mission accomplished by any means. Like, we look forward to working on this further.
Well, I appreciate Parks' willingness to continue hearing feedback as well. And I think we all share the goal of both, in light of the history of the island, in light of the vision that we all have, and our mutual recognition of the importance of preserving it as a burial site first and foremost. We appreciate your work, and we're grateful to all the staff at Hart Island who are taking care of it every single day. I know it's not easy work, and we thank you all very much. Thanks for the time, co-chairs, and now I'll turn it over to Chair Schulman.
Thank you very much, and thank you for everyone that's here and for sitting here for this. So I have a couple of, I'm going to skip around a little bit. One question I have, so because of Superstorm Sandy and other weather events and all that, there are bones that have been on the shoreline and collapsing into the water. So my question is why the Parks Department didn't put out an RFP for shoreline restoration and instead is focusing on turning the island to working on the island for visitors. So that's the question I have.
I think we disagree with the premise, Councilmember. Thank you for the question, but there is an active shoreline restoration project that's underway, and more work is contemplated in the concept plan as well. I think obviously respecting the island's core function as the city's public burial grounds is first and foremost in everyone's minds. Having said that, the island does serve an important role for visitors, and we want to make sure that that experience is as pleasant and meaningful as possible. So I think we see this as a united, holistic approach to making sure that the experience on the island can be thoughtfully managed. There is no doubt that it is an island, located where it is, and it is susceptible, to storm surge and things of that nature, and that's something that's very, very much being incorporated into our thought and planning moving forward.
I'm not chair of the Parks Committee, but if you can get us information about the shoreline restoration and how that's happening and any details, that would be
absolutely both for active work and
very
for
helpful.
Okay,
I also want to ask. So, it was mentioned by DSS that the capacity is 18 years to bury people there. You said that in your testimony, you said that prior to the plans by the Parks Department, with the plans, by the Parks Department, the capacity is 18 years. If the Parks Department hadn't come up with those plans, would the capacity have been greater?
Thank you for the question, Chair. Yes, because obviously, for instance, if you're creating a visitor center, that would take some land out of use. So again, working very closely and constructively with the Parks Department, we determined that as a most prudent figure forecast would be 18 years.
Okay, without those plans, do you know what the forecast would have been?
I can give you a general sense because with the island itself there are different components to the island, some of which are more susceptible to burials than others. So in looking at a study, there are things that are sort of called future opportunities, which would require a lot of resources to sort of raise the land and make them potentially feasible for burials. So in eliminating some of those and some of the work that we've done, our estimate that would be more like, in the absence of any work, would be more like 27 years.
Okay, thank you very much. And so you talked a little bit before about disinterment. How many requests do you get a year, approximately?
Thanks for the question. It ranges. I think this year we're probably on track for, we've had 63 through September, so it's probably will end up being 84 based on that. And then prior year was 89. It's a pretty consistent number.
It's a pretty consistent. I was going to ask you if there was any trend or anything. So the other question I have is, you have a database.
Yes.
Yes, so the database only goes back to 1977. Is there any particular reason for that, or that's just when it came online, or I'm just curious?
It's part of the, yes, part of the fascinating history of Hart Island. Unfortunately, there was a fire in the 70s which destroyed a lot of records, which are unrecoverable. So the city, in its database, with confidence, can state that from really the late 70s on, the publicly accessible records are available from that period.
So I have a question about if folks are visiting the island, right? What are the plans if, God forbid, there's a medical emergency or something like that? Because some of the things that we've heard is that it takes a long time for any kind of help to come to the island and all of that. So can you just kind of lay that out?
Yeah, it's a great question. Thank you, Councilmember. And obviously, the safety and health of our park goers all throughout our system is a top priority for the agency. And I'll hand it over to Charles to talk a little bit more about some of the mechanisms that are in place for current visitors.
Thank you for the question, Chair. So our staff that operate on Hart Island, whether it's our urban park rangers, our Parks Enforcement Patrol, Honor Guard, and our Hart Island office operations team, we are all CPR and first aid certified. We are also certified AED respondents, and we also carry first aid equipment and AEDs during these visits, whether they are tours or gravesite visitations. So that equipment and those trained personnel are on site for these visits.
And I'll just note, this is an aspect of thought that was very much incorporated into the concept plan as well, and it's probably worth mentioning that the proposed visitor center, for example, could include interior space that would be really helpful in sort of a first aid experience if someone, with heat exhaustion, what have you, right? So there's components in which this, some of these interests are incorporated into our thought and planning.
Okay, I appreciate that. I used to work for the Emergency Medical Service, so I'm going to ask, how long will it take for, if there's an ambulance needed or something like that, to get to the island?
So the ferry trip itself from dock to dock is relatively short, 5 to 10 minutes.
That's correct.
But obviously there's a lot of factors and variables at play there in terms of getting to City Island itself, et cetera, et cetera.
Can you describe the current gravesite visitation process?
Sure, thanks. I think Charles can kind of narratively describe, how the visitations are broadly work when the visitors arrive to the City Island dock.
Absolutely. Thank you for the question. So the gravesite visitations, once the families have requested the visitation, again, at least 5 business days in advance, goes through our office. We get the locations of where they're looking to visit. Those locations are sent to our Honor Guard team, who mark out the locations in advance. On the day of the visit, the families will need to arrive at the dock prior to the departure time. There is a sign-in process where they sign in. They also sign a waiver form before they can board the ferry. The ferry is free, no charge, and goes over to Hart Island, usually in about a 5 or 10 minute boat ride. And once on the island, all of the visitors and staff board a shuttle bus that is provided. And the shuttle bus will drive along the main roads along the island. And once we've reached the gravesite locations that have been plotted out in advance, we'll take the family members and guide them to the location of where their loved one is laid to rest, especially if it's a first-time visitor who maybe is not familiar with the island. They'll take them to that location, answer any questions that they may have. The families will usually have anywhere from about 30 to 45 minutes at the actual gravesite of their loved one, at which point the shuttle bus will return to pick everybody up, and once everybody's collected, they'll return back for a return trip on the ferry.
Okay. How many people have been out since Parks took over the island? How many people have come out for visiting?
A grand total of over 3,500 visitors.
Okay. Now I'm going to ask OCME a couple questions. How does OCME maintain and verify the linkage between the medical examiner case numbers and specific burial plots on Hart Island?
Thank you for that. Sorry about that. In conjunction with HRA, when burial is completed, they will provide us back with the plot numbers, which we enter into our case management system to correlate each case with its burial location.
So since my committee oversees OCME, I know that you have all new DNA equipment and all kinds of fancy stuff. So how does that fit into identifying individuals and things like that.
So as far as unidentified individuals, the number that go to Hart Island relatively low, usually the low to mid-20s. But again, we exhaust all our capabilities in identifying, mostly through the outreach process. It's not that often that the labs are needed to get involved with identification of individuals going to Hart Island. It's more I'm sorry, we also have a IRC identification committee that works on particularly difficult cases. And again, Hart Island is a temporary internment for these cases, and quite often we'll reach the HRA to bring decedents back if a new identification modality or a piece of the puzzle comes forward where we can facilitate identification of those cases.
Has the new DNA technology helped?
It has. And we've seen that in other instances where more recent identifications have been made.
How does OCME coordinate data and record-keeping with the Parks Department, HRA, and DOHMH to ensure consistency and accuracy across all the systems?
So again, I don't know if you want to touch on the cemetery management track system. We also have our case management system. The agencies are maintain very good communication. Our systems, as you know, in your capacity, communicate with the Bureau of Fire Statistics databases. So we have constant communication with BVS regarding decedents and their information. HRA, OCME has access to the HRA systems, and we, I would say between the manifest, the systems, and our constant communication, we communicate and share decedent information across pretty effectively.
Okay, I'm going to give you some opportunities here. So one is, do you have any policy, staffing, or funding constraints that we can help with that limit your ability to expand identification or family outreach efforts?
So this administration was kind enough to provide some funding for additional outreach personnel. We were able to actually double our current outreach personnel. Those individuals, I think with the exception of two, have been identified. They're going through extensive training, so they're not fully up to speed yet, but they will assist in identifying decedents and identifying decedents to go to Hart Island or affect private disposition or disposition at the next of kin's request at Hart Island. So we thank you for that.
What legislative or administrative changes could help OCME improve transparency, family notification, or the identification of those buried on Hart Island? Because, as you know, when we have these hearings, we sometimes come up with legislation. So, giving you an opportunity here.
So I'm going to, I'm not exactly sure which one you're speaking of. That we have a few in process, but maybe you
Okay,
can help
we
me.
can talk offline, and whatever we can be helpful with, we will. I also want to ask you, has there been any instances where a body has been misidentified?
So many years ago, we had an instance where we had to search through Hart Island and the records to try to determine, but it turned out that was not the case there. So misidentification does not really take place, right? We have very robust, we always err on the side of caution, where we're not going to identify, right? Identifying and ensuring 100% accuracy with our decedents is our primary goal. So, we have not had that issue. And again, we will use Hart Island as a temporary interment if we've exhausted all identification process, and then, return decedents if additional identification modalities or something has come forward. But we have not misidentified anyone that has gone to Hart Island.
Appreciate that. One last question for the Parks Department, which is that because it's an island, so I mean, I assume when you guys are doing any kind of building or any kind of structural work that you test to make sure that a sinkhole doesn't develop or, something along those lines, and, just want to know what's in place to ensure.
Yeah, typically speaking, thank you for the question, Chair. Typically speaking, any capital project that the agency undertakes is often accompanied by, site borings and things of that nature. This island is particularly unique because of its, its sort of physical constitution, right? So that's something that's very much top of mind as we're going to explore any further work.
Okay, thank you. Chair? That's all my questions for right now. Thank you.
I had a couple of follow-ups. Can you tell us who's responsible for the data collection and reporting in relation to the grave sites, and who was responsible before the island was transferred to HRA and Parks?
The Deputy Speaker, that information was maintained by the Department of Corrections.
Okay. So the data on the data on open data has only 4,519 records. Hart Island project has 80,490 listed as the number of people buried on Hart Island since 1980. The open data records go back to 1981. So why are there so many records missing? Is that because of the fire?
Because of the fire, and as I noted too, as part of the upgrade into CMTS, there was proactive outreach to other agencies to try and fill in missing data fields, particularly from earlier records, so that people going online have the best opportunity to determine if a loved one is there.
So if I went online today, how many individuals are listed on that database?
It's a great question. I can get you a figure, but if you are searching for someone to be responsive to your question, who may have died in the late 60s, the 1950s, that record would not be reflected.
Wow. Oosh. There were burials also happening in the 1800s, right? The late 1800s.
Yes.
I'm assuming there are no records of those either.
There is a general understanding of where the bodies are buried. You're right, since really 1869, which would also include Civil War veterans. Obviously, in a period of 150 plus years, different people have had responsibility for the islands, different record-keeping methodologies. But, obviously today, I would say, particularly the work we're all doing together, we have sort of the gold standard for tracking where people are buried. But for prior generations, we do have a general sense of where decedents from different eras are buried.
I'm assuming that we're digitizing all records now.
I'm talking all records in the sense of you might be in part of the island and know, for instance, this is where people from the post-Civil War era were buried, or this is an area where people who during the influenza in 1918 are buried.
Well, where is that information documented? Is that just an internal document, or?
It's more internal, though I believe there's some markers on the island. But yeah, it's more internal.
Are those?
And
yeah, go ahead.
I'll just add, when it comes to sort of the visitation process, it does happen on occasion when someone is interested in visiting someone that was buried in earlier decades, earlier centuries. And we do our best, given sort of the historical understanding of where burials happened at various points in time, we're often able to kind of lead them to a approximate location so they can have that moment of remembrance. And so we certainly do everything in our power, even if the exact sort of pinpointed location might not be available. We do our best to make sure that they can still have a very meaningful and important experience.
Yeah. Are those areas in the recently identified locations for future burials?
Correct me if I'm wrong, I think you mean, will there be previously used areas that will be considered for further burials? Is that the question? I think in terms of how that rotates around, I think I defer to our...
think that gets to the question of deepening and lifting, where you are recycling previously used plots, which is our understanding that was a practice at Hart Island decades ago. But to be responsive to your question, the sites we're looking at currently for future burials are not, we would not be using that process of lifting and deepening, but that is something we would like very much to look into if the local law is enacted as a way of maintaining and indeed potentially increasing capacity on the island.
I mean, was there a possibility of doing this without us having to enact a law?
Pardon me?
Was there a space where this could have been, where this study could have been conducted without us mandating that through a local law?
Yeah, it's a fair question. These are conversations we're having constantly with parks. What I do like about reading the language of the local law, the proposed local law, is I think it really gives energy and focus and momentum to things we're already doing, and I think shows a citywide commitment to making sure that Hart Island remains a viable resting place for generations to come.
Okay. Does DSS keep record of which grave sites do not receive visitors and may be considered abandoned, if you will? Maybe.
Sorry.
All right, so we have X amount of grave sites. When families are coming to visit, do we know if it's the same families that are coming to visit the same grave sites, or, like, is there a fluctuation? Are there grave sites that have never, been visited at all?
I mean, over the history of the island, I mean, my understanding is upwards of 1 million people are buried. So, by and large, I mean, I think the more historic burials, I think it's fair to say, don't get visitors as often, just because of the way time proceeds. But I think with each visit, and Charles can correct me if I mischaracterize, it breaks out to roughly half and half in terms of first-time visitors, newly visiting for their first experience, and we also have a significant number of repeat, consistent, frequent visitors, if you will, as well. So it's a combination.
Yeah. Could you explain why some burial sites are marked with a headstone and some are not? Most are not.
Yeah, in terms of the actual burials themselves, in terms of the presence of
The
markers or
yeah.
stones.
Yes, Deputy Speaker, there are markers, and that those not only denote where the plot is, but that also serves as a reference point to do GPS mapping.
We saw a photograph, I think, in Park's presentation of headstones, what appeared to be headstones.
I believe those date from a prior era. We used sort of upright white markers that denote more recent plots, and that's what we mark from.
And do we know what the number of children that are buried at Hart Island? Are they buried separately, or are they buried?
They do have a separate plot. Obviously, it's one of the saddest, most solemn things that our staff have to undertake. They account for about 25% currently of annual burials, and it will take generally more than a year to complete a plot with infants and fetal remains.
So does it remain open?
It's covered throughout the process.
Covered throughout the process.
Yeah.
Okay. And these, I'm assuming, are babies primarily that didn't make it to full term, or? Yeah.
It could be, yes, Deputy. It could be a range of an infant who did not survive more than a few weeks, a few months, or it could be a stillborn.
Got it. Okay. Wow. A lot of information today. I think that, I've certainly learned a lot through this process, and look forward to continuing to be helpful wherever I can to ensure that, families have greater access to their loved ones, maybe a little bit more spontaneously. Yeah, I think, thank you for coming today. I don't have any more questions. I don't know, Shekhar, do you? We've been joined by Councilmember Riley. So thank you very much. We're going to take a 5-minute bathroom break, and then we'll be back.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Can everybody settle down and find a seat? We're getting ready to continue. Everybody settle down and find a seat. We are getting ready to continue.
I now open the hearing for public testimony. I remind members of the public that this is a government proceeding and that the quorum shall be observed at all times. As such, members of the public shall remain silent at all times. The witness table is reserved for people who wish to testify. No video recording or photography is allowed from the witness table. Further, members of the public may not present audio or video recordings as testimony, but may submit transcripts of such recordings to the Sergeant of Arms for inclusion in the hearing record. If you wish to speak at today's hearing, please fill out an appearance card with the Sergeant at Arms and wait to be recognized. When recognized, you will have 2 minutes to speak on today's hearing topics, Hart Island Intro 1408 and Resolution 775. If you have a written statement or additional written testimony that you wish to submit for the record, please provide a copy of that testimony to the Sergeant at Arms. You may also email written testimony to testimony@council.nyc.gov within 72 hours of this hearing. Audio and video recordings will not be accepted. We will now call up our first panel, Thomas Berner and Melinda Hunt.
Can you hear me? Yes. Hi, so I'm Melinda Hunt. I'm president of the Hart Island Project. I've been going to Hart Island documenting the burials since 1991. I first started negotiating with the Department of Correction for family access and took a mother who was celebrating the 40th anniversary of her baby being buried on Hart Island in 1994. So I've been taking family members there for over 30 years. The legislation that was first introduced to transfer jurisdiction in 2012, came as a result of us creating an online database of burials and family members discovering what happened to their loved ones for the first time. So just the history of this legislation. And I'm very pleased to be here today with Vice President of the organization, Tom Berner, who is also connected to Hart Island in that his family has Native American roots to this property, which belonged to his ancestors who were Native Americans. So I'm really pleased that you are holding this hearing, and on behalf of the Hart Island Project, I strongly support, and the Hart Island Project strongly supports Intro 1408. This legislation represents a critical step towards securing a sustainable and ethical future for city burials. Over the past year, we've met with members of the City Council to present Landscape of Hope, a proof of concept developed in collaboration with landscape architects at Ohio State University. And this plan demonstrates how New York City could transition to individual burials on Hart Island, preserving the nation's largest green cemetery for future generations. This sustainable practice involves burial plots dug just 3 feet deep instead of the current 8 feet deep. May I continue? Using data from the city's 2022 burial capacity studies, researchers at OSU have concluded that the southern half of Hart Island is now unsuitable for the deep trench burials. Associate Professor of Landscape Architecture Jake Boswell, I believe, is going to testify virtually, and he will submit proof documents that show this problem that we've identified, which I hope 1408 will resolve. And I do believe that the current rate that that the Department of Social Services is projecting is accurate. So they've also adjusted their numbers. The 2022 study projected that the removal of buildings would create enough new burial space for 70 years. So clearly that's flawed. And it failed to adequately address the risk in areas we call the Southern Plain. This land is at elevations where digging 8-foot trenches creates a liability due to the rising water table, which is different from the shoreline, okay? So you can restore the shoreline to keep the surface of Hart Island from flooding, but you're still gonna get groundwater. And so they found in the prior burial capacity study that there was groundwater 7 feet below grade in test pit 32, an area likely to be used for burial within the next decade. So this is why you have to pass this bill. If the water enters these caskets, there may still be air and human remains that are not fully decomposed, and these will tend to float. This shifting will cause the ground above to heave and rupture the surface. Even the most basic capital improvements, such as the crushed stone walks, benches, and signage planned by the Parks Department, will be impacted by this ground instability. The problem with NYC Parks concept plan is its failure to properly consider these likely occurrences below the surface. Therefore, further study demanded by Intro 1408 is critical and a necessary step that must be completed before any plans for the future of Hart Island are finalized. Okay, and I agree with them that they need the 18 months as well. As the nation's largest municipal cemetery, Hart Island is also the only green cemetery within the 5 boroughs, providing a natural burial option for New Yorkers who cannot afford the services of a funeral director to take a body outside of the city. City burials are environmentally superior because they do not involve embalming, hardwood caskets, or concrete vaults. However, the practice of mass burial is widely considered offensive, and we believe it is time to revise the burial practice independent of concerns for sea level rise. It is no longer necessary to bury 200 boxes in 8-foot deep trenches, a practice that adversely impacts communities across the city. We began meeting with NYC Parks in May 2023, well before the Star White House contract was awarded, to warn them that the scope of the plan was insufficient because it did not address the burial practice. Although the plan claims to maximize the cemetery's life cycle and enhance ecological systems and adapt to climate change, there is almost no indication of the rising water table underground. The shoreline restoration will keep water off the surface, but it will not keep water out of the boxes buried 8 feet deep. Additionally, the proposal calls for extensive use of lawn grass, which is a poor choice for this location because it requires excessive watering, and that contributes to the accumulation of water below. NYC Parks' own guidelines for design and planning of flood resiliency call for planting meadow species, a recommendation that they should follow on Hart Island. So everybody's talking about how Hart Island looks a lot better because of the mowing and the cleanup, but that actually is really not good for the burials themselves. Whereas if you plant meadow grasses, which have deeper roots, that will help to keep the soil in place and prevent erosion of these bones into the Long Island Sound and and make sure that we're able to perform disinterments. So you do not want to be planting grass out there because it's very sandy soil and it dries out really quickly, and so you have to water all the time, and you're just adding more water to the ground water that's already there and rising because of sea level rise. New York State, and this wasn't talked about today, may soon permit the city to cremate unclaimed remains after 90 days. There's current legislation in Albany to allow municipalities to cremate. So this would really impact the city's options. Probably it would be very popular with New Yorkers if the city could cremate. So we strongly believe that plans for Hart Island should include storage and burial of cremains, and that if they are conducted by the city, and if the law permits cremation, the city should list both cremations and burials in its publicly accessible database that they were just talking about today, and provide access to a location on Hart Island where the cremains have been deposited. So that also needs to be part of the plan. If the city's going to cremate, where are you going to put the cremains afterwards? If you're going to give them back to the families, you're going to have an awful lot of cremations that the taxpayers are going to pay for. So you need to do a cost analysis before you do that. While measures like lifting the cap on funeral expenses are helpful, they will not resolve the fundamental questions of how to provide a decent burial or cremation for unclaimed remains. City burials and cremations need to be a good choice alongside private services that are paid for through burial assistance. Thank you so much.
Councilmember Schulman has a question.
Yeah, I have a question. Is the Parks Department working currently with you in terms of their plans?
They have just now started listening to us.
Okay.
And I'm assuming that this legislation that we both support means that we are going to work together as much as possible. I mean, really, I just want things to be better I work with hundreds of families, over time. And they often are on their first visit to Hart Island when they learn that their loved one's in a mass grave.
Right.
It's not clear to them when they agree to a city burial that that's what they're agreeing to. So whatever you do, it needs to be properly explained. So if you're going to do lift and deepen, which wouldn't happen until much later, that needs to be explained as something that would happen when the family agrees to a city burial. So you shouldn't do lift and deepen on the current burials, because the family didn't agree to that. Although the city legally can do it, you probably shouldn't do that. And what we're recommending is that if you only are digging down 3 feet, that you can lay out the bodies individually and mark each one with GPS, not just the whole plot as they're doing, so that you know the location of every single body, and the family can navigate there using their phone, basically, to know where their loved one is. You don't have to go out and see this spike in the ground. The city knows exactly where that body was placed. This is very simple technology, and since they built the database, they can add to that. So these are all things that we're going to hash out, but what you want is for them to consider a variety of options at this point, and then make recommendations to the city council, and then you decide on how much you're going to fund and what you're going to fund. But I don't think you can do, even the visitor center, we don't know if that location, if there will be burials fairly close by. We want the ground to be stable in order to facilitate visitation. So we need to know, where the groundwater is and make more accurate projections. So that was missing from the parks plan. And so this legislation, I think, does resolve that.
Okay, just let the committee let us know if they're not working with you, or, so that we can push on that.
Yes, well, I mean, I've met with many of you already in the past year and whatnot, and I think that's what helped us to be able to meet with the agencies. So, you know, very slowly, since I started in 1991, the whole place has changed.
Okay.
Because the city council started paying attention to it. And, you know, before the fire in 1977, there are letters from the Department of Correction to the city council asking them to help them secure the burial ledgers which were out there, but the city council didn't fund it.
Got it.
So we lost all the burials from 1961 through July 1977 because the Department of Correction moved off of Hart Island and vandals got on there and set fire to the warden's house and destroyed all the records. That's what happened. So it needs to be the agencies and the city council and the stakeholders, the public and the families, all coming to the best solution, which isn't a perfect solution.
Right, of course.
But we need to provide a service that people feel comfortable with.
Right. Okay.
And these mass burials are no longer acceptable culturally, right? Yeah.
Thank you so much for all your work that you're doing on this. Appreciate it.
I had a question and it came and left. Ay, ay, ay. Thank you. The next panel is Elaine Joseph, Elsie Soto, Michael Hager, and Charlene Cooper.
Good afternoon. My name is Elaine Joseph. In 1978, I had a baby girl who passed away at a hospital in the city. Her body was lost in the system between the hospital, the medical examiner's office, and is likely buried somewhere on Hart Island. I say somewhere because the burial records for babies between 1977 and 1981 have also been lost. It took me 31 years to finally find out where she is most likely buried. After advocating for gravesite visits on Hart Island since 2009, I was the first person to walk to a gravesite, although the exact location was a guesstimate location, on March 14, 2014. I spent another 5 years advocating to have the jurisdiction of the island transferred from the Department of Correction, which was a living nightmare, to the Department of Parks. This finally occurred in 2019. This was an improvement to the feeling of the visits, but there is more that is needed to make the visit feel like it is a welcoming and serene cemetery. As it stands now, visits are conducted by the Department of Parks 2 days a month on weekends only. I would like to be able to visit more often and have regularly scheduled weekday hours as well. I don't like the fact that I have to sign up in advance to make a visit and must list my guests and only permitted 4 guests. The time for a visit is also limited right now to about an hour or less, since they have a bus that circles the island with other visitors and comes back to pick us up. The Parks Department is using enforcement officers to escort people to their grave sites. When they have public visits, park rangers escort them, and they have a longer visit than families they have a longer visit than families have to a loved one's grave. It brings back negative memories of having correction officers with guns and handcuffs by my side while I'm at my baby's gravesite. I understand that there's an issue of transporting people via a ferry to the island. It would be most beneficial to those coming from all boroughs to not have to come to City Island to gain access to Hart Island. With all of the ferries we now have in the city, there should be a way to figure out how we can have a ferry from each borough. I often sit along the waterway park on the Queen side of the Throgs Neck Bridge, and look over at Hart Island and wish there was a simple ferry I can board during the week to go and visit the grave of my baby girl, Tamika. My final thoughts on the proposal to change the burial procedures is to please not even consider covering the current graves with layers of dirt and burying additional bodies on top of the current graves. After over 47 years, I've come to terms with the fact that my daughter is buried somewhere on Hart Island, and it would bring back all kinds of feelings if I now had to deal with the fact that there are bodies buried over hers. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. My name is Elsie Soto. I am director of the Friends of Hart Island. I am here not only as an advocate, but also as a daughter and sister.
Okay.
My father, Norberto Soto, passed away from HIV/AIDS complications in 1993. And more recently, in 2023, my brother, Morgan Soto, passed from fentanyl poisoning. Both rest on Hart Island. I live with those losses every day. I have stood at the Hart Island ferry gates, placing locks in memory of my loved ones. I have watched as other visitors clutched flowers, thank you, have clutched flowers and photographs of their loved ones as well. Sorry. The grief hits in specific moments, like when I stood in my cap and gown, just graduating from college, not being able to visit my father or my brother's loved one's gravesite. It is those moments that remind me of the restrictions needlessly placed on someone's resting place. That aching reminder to request a visit. Hart Island is historic. It holds generations of New Yorkers who are part of this beautiful city's fabric. It should be landmarked. It should be protected to preserve its dignity and ensure that what happened in the past is never repeated. Many of us were not in this room when decisions about Hart Island were made, but we are here today. We can make meaningful change in history by righting many wrongs that have caused families like mine pain and shame. Today, we are asking for expanded visitation so families can mourn and connect more than twice a month, which also happens to be the same amount of visitations for public tours. We also are asking for landmark status to protect the entire island, north, south, east, west, every grain of sand, every gravel that is considered Hart Island to be protected. A GPS system to properly identify and preserve grave sites. I've submitted photos to Shekhar Krishnan and also Eric Bach's office showing that on 2 separate visits within months of each other, I was taken to two different areas. Where do I put my flowers? Where do I put my keepsakes? It's not fair. We are also asking for a family advisory committee so that those directly affected, loved ones, families, have a real voice in the decisions about the island's future. Finally, we strongly oppose any proposal that desecrates grave sites, whether it be adding soil over existing burials or disturbing those already laid to rest. To do so would be deeply unethical and inhumane. Everyone laid to rest on Hart Island is a New Yorker, and they deserve respect and dignity. Hart Island is not just about history, it is about humanity. Families like mine carry both the pain of loss and hope, true hope, that this island will finally become a place of remembrance and respect. I thank you all for being here, I thank you for listening, and I thank you for standing with us to protect our loved ones. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Shirlene Cooper. I was born and raised in Fort Greene Projects in Brooklyn, New York. My cousin, Benjamin Bumper, a couple of years my senior, would always come by to visit me. He loved to eat and dance to the Floater's song, Float On. Many years later, I found out he was homeless and passed away in the New York City subway train station. We were not contacted or informed of his death by anyone, and he was transported to Hart Island, known as Pottersfield. My family was devastated to hear this unfortunate news, because had we known, he would have been given a more proper burial and last resting place. There is no excuse for this inappropriate occurrence and miscommunication of lost family members. Once he was identified, we should have been contacted immediately. My heart goes out to those who have similar issues with loved ones buried in Hart Island. And I just wanted to add, I'm a person living with HIV and AIDS. I was diagnosed in 1996 after losing my son at the age of 2 in 1995 when there were no medications available. I am currently the first Black woman to sit on the City Council's HIV/AIDS Service Administration's Advisory Board for 23 years. I worked side by side by commissioners for years discussing Hart Island and how the burials are done and how they operate, including the former Commissioner Matthew Brune, who I've just seen for many years later. They do have a chat worker system, which is held on Thursdays, where and it's called chat workers, meaning Comprehensive Health Assessments Team. So that's a team of special caseworkers who assist when people have deaths or burials and they need help and assistance with burying their loved ones. I would like to ask you all to meet with HASA to make sure that these burials are being properly held and that the families are being informed properly. Most of these families don't even know where their families are buried. I just found out this year by joining Ready, Aim, Innovate and LC's Hart Island project. My cousin has been in its ground for 34 years. He died January 3rd, 1991. I just found out a month ago, just because I entered this project. And I think it's a shame that families are missing loved ones. You have veterans there, you have Janes, you have John Does, you have low-income families who do not have the luxury of life insurance. We need to be informed. How do you contact us? And I just wanted to say thank you all for this opportunity.
Good afternoon. My name is Michael Hager. I'm a resident of Member Botcher's district. I too am a person living with HIV for more than half my life now, and I'm the founder and CEO of Ready, Aim, Innovate. We center individual and community narratives to drive change. The most important thing in life is people, and the essence of a person is their story. RAI created the Friends of Hart Island Project to explore what it means to have death with dignity through storytelling. After all, death is one of the most important parts of life. Challenging as it is, we often don't pay attention to end-of-life issues until it's too late. It is difficult to talk about death. It is difficult for America's greatest city to handle pandemics, poverty, and human need on such a grand scale. Even so, people deserve dignity in death. Americans have expectations about what it means to be laid to rest, to be able to grieve, to be able to visit their deceased loved ones. These expectations are routinely not met currently when it comes to Hart Island. Are the folks laid to rest there less valuable to New York? There are war heroes laid to rest there and history. Are those resting on Hart Island less of a New Yorker than any of the rest of us? Every single zip code and every single population in New York City has a connection to this island. It is not easy to think of a way forward, but we are begging New York City Hall and government to consider the humanity, the history, and the need to recognize the countless contributions of our friends, family, and neighbors laid to rest in Hart Island. Do not move graves. Do not stack graves. Do not prioritize the public over grieving families. Do not allow the remains of our loved ones to be sent out of state pursuant to the legislation before the State House. Be the change we need. Bring the dignity to our loved ones laid to rest on Hart Island. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your testimony. I just wanted to say how moving it was to hear from each of you, your powerful words, your viewpoints and your stories. And I want you all to know that your loved ones who are buried at Hart Island, whether they be children or parents or siblings, their lives mattered. They are New Yorkers. Their final resting places matter. And I have been moved, and I know I speak for all of us in the City Council when I say I have been moved to hear those stories, to work with you all, and to find a way that together we can make sure that the purpose of Hart Island is to honor those who are buried there, like your relatives, and we will continue to work to make sure that's the case. Your voices today have been heard loud and clear. Your work that you've done to advocate for your relatives there has impacted all of us and continues to do so. The ideas you've mentioned, like a family advisory committee or other suggestions, I think are good ideas that we should follow up on together with the Parks Department and every city agency that has a role at Hart Island. But all of that comes from knowing first and foremost and wanting to make sure you all know that for all of us and for us on our City Council here, your loved ones who are there, their stories, their lives, their final resting places matter, and we hold that in the highest regard, and we honor them as we do this work. Thank you all so much.
I have a question. Were you ever able to determine where exactly your family was buried? There was some confusion about the location.
Yes, so I was taken to the correct grave site, but however, there's the plots. And in one point, in my father's specific plot in 231, they added basically a pole, I guess, to give them some sort of reference point. In one of the photos that I have in October, I'll just use the napkins, if you will. This is the actual pole that they put as a reference point in the grave site. In October, the marker was put over here. In December, it was put in here. Same year, a couple months later, what's the difference? There's a huge difference where I put my flowers. Where do I put the sand when I visit Puerto Rico? I can't bring my dad to Puerto Rico, but I try to bring a little bit to him.
Yeah.
And it's important to me, and it's important to everyone who has a loved one resting on that island. The least that they can do is give us a little bit of accuracy. GPS system is an open source program. Anyone can do it. I mean, I'm willing to do it at this point.
Yeah.
And I think that, just even what HRA was saying earlier, when my brother was interred on the island, I did that process because my mom was just too grief-stricken to even comprehend what was happening, because his loss was very sudden. We were not informed at all that the graves went from 150 to 200. It was actually a Parks Department employee that gave me that information, not HRA, not when we were talking over the phone, asking, various questions and doing the interment process. I was never told that. Would it have made a difference? Absolutely. I already have issues on where I'm putting my father's flowers. Now I have my brother also to worry about.
Yeah. See, my concern with that is this is why we asked the question about whether or not there had been any cases where bodies were misidentified and remains of the wrong person were given to a family, because if we can't accurately determine where exactly a body is, then how do we know for sure that we are delivering the remains of their family to them? Like I don't see how we don't make that mistake.
Right, and I also want to bring up another tiny concern about any proposals moving forward that have to do with adding a burial on top of other graves. I mean, how are we supposed to keep track if we can't keep track of what we have right now? And people lose faith in the city and their agencies to do the proper thing.
Yeah, no, I agree. Thank you guys so much for coming in and sharing your stories with us. We've learned a lot today, and I think that the objective here is to be able to pass resolutions introduction of bills that really help to address a lot of these concerns as well. Thank you. Yes.
Yeah, so for me, just fine. My family is grieving him now. He died in 91.
Yeah.
This is a whole new agenda that I had to open up, and I was the one who had to bring it to them. I had to call his sisters down south. I had to call everybody up here, and this is his burial right here. This is his funeral right here, right now, because he didn't have one, and no one knows. And everybody's sad. I'm getting calls from everybody. I'm like, I don't even know what to do with this right now. What am I can't change it. It happened in 1991. No one told us. And now we're having a funeral for him now, a memorial for him now, 31 years later.
Yeah. It's just a final question. I didn't think to occur to ask this. But for those of you that are visiting, when you're visiting, is the ferry full to capacity?
No.
No?
I've been on several visits prior to DOC and as well as parks, and every visit that I've been on, there's been points where even parks employees have to stand on the bus because they don't have a place to sit. And they have the first 4 rows are reserved for parks employees.
Yeah.
So they're the ones that are standing on these buses. I believe that it's full to capacity. I know that I have a visit on Sunday, and we have 35 visits. We have 35 visitors. So, the need is there for expanded
There's a need for, I thought it was weekly. I didn't realize that it was just once a month.
2 times a month. And, I'm also very conscious of, yes, I want to visit my loved one, but I'm also conscious of other people who want to visit their loved one. And if I take that space, they won't have their visit. So please understand that, we are very conscious of that as loved ones as well that want to visit our family members.
Yeah, no, it robs us also, right, of the ability to properly mourn our loved ones. Because I know, when I go to the cemetery to visit, my mom, I like to sit there with her for a little while, and I like to play music that she enjoyed, listening to. And sometimes, if I want to cry and I don't want to cry around my family members, I want to go there and sit there and, pray and cry and do all of the things that that are healing to me, as well as a person that's going through the grieving process. So I can only imagine the indignity of having to do that, or to not be able to do that, because you're now surrounded by so many unfamiliar faces, and it takes away your right to have that private moment. But thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Okay.
I just wanted to quickly say, I do give Parks Department kudos. Their staff has always been extremely gracious to us. It's not an easy environment to work in, and I do believe that they are doing the best that they can. And any room for improvement is always welcomed, but I just want to make that very clear that Parks Department is definitely doing
Yeah, no,
a great job.
I've been on a couple of visits. I agree.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Okay. Okay. We're going to briefly move to our Zoom participants, Jake Boswell and Alan Joseph.
You may
Jake?
begin.
Hi, thanks. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi. Thank you for hearing my testimony today. My name is Jake Boswell. I'm an associate professor of landscape architecture at Ohio State. For the last 2 years, my colleagues and I have been working with Melinda Hunt and the Hart Island Project on an analysis of the 2022 burial capacity study in relation to the proposed master plan, which has now been released as the Hart Island Concept Plan. I want to express my support of Intro 1408. The 2022 burial capacity study is a deeply flawed document. It should be redone before concrete decisions are made about the island's future. The 2022 study offers only a cursory assessment of burial options beyond the current method of mass burial. It bases its future projections on historically low burial numbers, and it fails to consider the broader human dimensions of the city's mass burial practices. Most jarringly, the study fails to consider the existing groundwater levels or projected sea level rise. As shown in figures 1 through 7 of the testimony that I've submitted, over 20% of the burial sites planned in the 2022 capacity study will experience significant groundwater intrusion by 2080, if not earlier. Given this information, the city should avoid relying on low-lying areas of the island for future burials, especially for 8-foot deep mass graves. In fact, it may be already necessary for the city to take steps to mitigate mass graves that are already situated in these vulnerable zones. The 2025 concept plan advances many necessary projects for the island. However, it unfortunately compounds the issues of the 2022 capacity study by outlining future buildings, facilities, and roads without questioning the capacity study's conclusions about burial methods or the timelines it sets out. You have options beyond mass burial. By exploring different burial methods, my team and I have demonstrated
Thank
that
you
the
for your
city could
testimony. Time has expired.
You can continue, guys. I'm sorry, you can wrap up.
We've been able to show that the city could extend the life of Hart Island by adopting a practical form of green burial. Figures 8 through 10 of the submitted testimony illustrate our idea and how it could work. This approach would allow the city to utilize much more of the island for future burials, including higher ground on the northern half. Using this method, we believe the city could ensure that Hart Island remains an active burial site indefinitely. We think our solution is more practical and compassionate than current mass burial practices. Our plan also offers better environmental outcomes and creates a more respectful and comforting space for visiting families. And we call that proposal Landscape of Hope. In carrying out this work, our hope is only that it prompts the city to reconsider its burial practices on Hart Island. Alternatives are possible. For the very practical reasons I've laid out here today and in the submitted testimony, it's time for the City of New York to end mass burial on Hart Island. Thank you.
Thank you. Alan Joseph?
You may begin.
Okay, thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. I learned about Hart Island a couple of ways. My partner actually lived there many years ago, and we were introduced to the Hart Island Project and Melinda Hunt. We participated in a number of the meetings that she's had, and that Landscape of Hope project that Jake spoke about is very, very impressive in my opinion. Hart Island, as I've come to learn, has made a significant contribution to New York City, both historically and in practice. You touched on it earlier on, but basically the history goes back centuries, from the Native Americans who lived there to the Civil War to the missile site there, to Phoenix House, the rehab center. There was, for a short period of time, an amusement park that was proposed that for minorities that unfortunately never got off the ground many years ago as well. It has a strong historical statement. And I agree with some of the other participants who basically are stating that Hart Island should be a landmark site because of the history that's there. I support Melinda Hunt, the Hart Island Project, and that Landscape of Hope. I've watched the development and the change in Hart Island over the years since the parks took it over. I just wish more of the history, the buildings would have been able to be saved, but we can't undo or unring that bell. I believe
Thank
that
you for your
progress is
testimony.
being
Time has
made.
expired.
You can wrap up. You can wrap up.
I believe progress is being made, but I think that the master plan needs to take into account all the various options for a long-range future, not just a quick and easy way out. So I would support the Landscape of Hope project. Ask you to take a look at it seriously. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Our next in-person panel will be Tabitha Ward, Stephen Lopez. Is there a Stephen Lopez? Okay. And Delamar Leon. Okay, Ms. Ward, you can begin.
Yes, my name is Tabitha Ward, and forgive me, but I have something to say that is off topic, so I'm going to be very brief. I won't even take up the 2 minutes, but I have submitted a proposal for the housing voucher recipients to directly receive housing vouchers, full award amounts deposited onto their benefit cards or onto their checking accounts. I do apologize if this isn't the correct panel. However, I received the information later date that the actual panel had been deferred or canceled today.
I
My
appreciate it.
apologies.
Thank you. Yes.
Hi, New York City Council members. My name is Delmar Leon, and I am here to represent, to actually bring up a very important matter that I think needs to be considered. A New York City judge recently determined that a pet is considered a family member. I am here to lend a voice to all the New York City known as boroughbred, unclaimed bodies of dogs, pets that have found themselves against their will under the care of the New York City Animal Care Center, where far too many who have been young, healthy, and with very strong desire to live have lost their lives unnecessarily. Does the city know or have a plan in place where the unclaimed stray dogs and pets who are killed at New York City Animal Care Center go after they are killed? I also would like to formally ask the Health Committee at New York City Council to prioritize this matter and ask for an Animal Welfare and Oversight Committee to be created and an oversight hearing to be scheduled as soon as possible to assess the mishandling of our animals under the New York City Animal Care and Control Center. And with that, I close my statements. I highly encourage all of you members to consider this matter as an emergency. I have dealt for the past year strictly every single day of my life, 24/7, left the animals that I have been representing in the kill shelters in California because the matter has become serious matter. No oversight, no one to report to, and no one cares to hear the outcome of these animals. No one's representing them. So here I am in their behalf.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for coming to testify today.
And perhaps even considered a burial site for these animals, because that would actually give some sort of accountability as to what happens to the bodies of these animals and cannot be misproperly used for other purposes.
No, we appreciate it, and we will take that into consideration. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
At this time, if there's anyone here who would like to testify, please complete the witness slip with the Sergeant at Arms so that we may call you. If any witnesses have registered and did not testify, please raise your hand. No? Okay. All right, at this time, seeing no other people here to testify, this hearing is adjourned.